5 hours. Rest, rhythm, repair, rejuvenation, reprogramming. Why do we need these 5 steps? We need these 5 steps in a sequential manner so we can use these 5 steps to reduce the number of CPS. Why do we need to reduce the number of CPS? Because that gives us a better observational skill. Why do we need a better observational skill? So we can improve our perception. Why we need a broader perception? Because to understand the situations of life, to understand what life is, yes, to be in reality, to see it the way it is. Once I understand the situations of my life, once I understand what life is, that leads to what? Effortlessness in life. Effortlessness is nothing but perfection in action. So it's always connected. Now, if you want to talk about the total sum of human struggle, is it possible for us to define the human struggle with few statements? Is it possible for us to define the human struggle with few statements? Yes. It seems yes. So let's try. And the very first statement, we are trying to define the human struggle. The struggle what we have in our life. Many things. Yes. Expectation, I would say, not a problem, but a privilege to the human being. But just because we don't know, is it an apple seed or a mango seed? I'm expecting a pear out of it. But I would say 3 statements for all this, and these 3 statements will accommodate all in the name of human struggle. So the very first statement is pain from the past. Pain from the past. I think we all have. Some of us we have less, some of us we have more. But we all have a kitty, we all have a baggage which comes from our past. And most of the time we have complained about our parents. Most of the time we have a lot of complaints about our parents because it seems like the kind of childhood I was in need of, they were unable to provide it to me. They were unable to provide it to me. So anytime if I struggle as a human being, a lot of blaming goes to the parenthood. I'm struggling in my life because of not a so nice childhood I have had. So pain from the past. The next one is conflict with present. We have conflict and fear for the future. So we have conflict with the present. And what is this conflict with the present? It seems like at the age of 13 and 14, I was a rebel. I was not listening to my parents' idea of how to live a life. I said, just go and get lost because I've noticed the way you have lived your life. Please don't talk about what life is because I have seen you struggle a great deal. So I would lead my own life in my own specific way. So I tried. And then I go into the relationship. The relationship with my parents, I cannot change because I took birth and I have no control over it. But it seems like now I can change, I can choose the people for me to have a relationship. So I just go all over and I check carefully. I check very carefully and I just go and talk and interact and date and do all sorts of things to find the best match for me. And then we go into those relationships and what happens? Yes, it replicates the same. It replicates the same. Because anytime we go into a relationship, we just sit and talk, especially on the early dates, we talk about the hobbies. What do you like? What do you dislike? You know? So on behalf of likes and dislikes, we define that, okay, this is the person to go with. This is the person to go with. But we know that the likes and dislikes, they change over time. Like I was having certain likes and dislikes 5 years back, but it's not the same anymore. We evolve. And then we also have heard that, Roshan, you're not the same person I went on marrying. And you're also not the same girl I went on marrying, my dear wife. It means what? It's hard for us to accept the evolution. It's hard for us to accept the evolution. So the thing is, we only meet a person once. We only meet a person once. So think of your very first date. First impression is last impression, we say. First impression is last impression. On the very first date, you went on calculating certain ideas about that person, and then whatever the rest missing, the mind went on completing it. So you came back with the perception of that person. The next time you go and visit the same person for your second time, you're not meeting that person anymore. You meet your perception of the last meeting. So it seems like when I go back home, I want to meet that girl I saw the very first time in 2005. And she's not there. And when I go back home, she just waits for that boy to come whom she met in 2005. And it seems like it's a big difference. There's a big difference. So can I say that the person whom I interacted in the morning time before coming to these classes at the time of breakfast at home is not going to be the same person anymore if I go back home for dinner? Is it possible for me to say that I'm going for a new date with my wife in the evening time? Because the last time I met, she's not going to be there for the dinner. So every time I visit a person, that's a new time. I'm meeting a new person, completely new person. This may have some similarities with the previous person, but it's not the same, because moment by moment we are changing. So is there a possibility for us to keep our relationship fresh enough with this idea that anytime I visit the same person I have met for the last 10 years, it's not the same anymore? First time I'm meeting this new personality. Because during the day, with the experiences of the day, that person has changed and has evolved. But again, it's hard for me to see it. What happens? Conflict with the present. The next one, we all know, in a sequence, we all are worried about future. And this is the total sum of human struggle. Pain from the past, conflict with the present, worry about the future. The only way to come out of this situation is to go back and find the ability to appreciate the past. The only way out of this situation that I must go back and acquire that state where I can appreciate the past I have had. And says, how come it's possible? Because some of the events were so bad. How come it's possible for me to appreciate my past? Because some of the events were so bad. Now, here comes the question. For sure, there was an event in your life. It was so bad, so harsh, so abusive. On top of this, if I ask, how many meanings are there of an event? Possible. How many possible ways we can define a particular event of our life? But it seems like we are just stuck with one meaning, one interpretation.
Interpretation for every different time in your life.
Yes, but it seems like if I'm still having the bag over my shoulder from my past, I haven't changed the meaning of that event yet.
Yes, true.
That means I'm still carrying the same meaning. But in the process of time, in the process of evolution, I must arrange those capabilities, those abilities, and I may define it differently. It seems like I'm just stuck with one meaning of that event. And I'm just stuck with one meaning of the event because of what? Because my awareness of that event is so gross. My awareness of that event is so gross. I need to refine my observational skill to see it again from a different perspective. And to see it again, you need to relax. But the thing is, as soon as you think of that event, what happens? Stress. As soon as you think of that event, what happens? It increases the sympathetic pulse. We know the autonomic nervous system. One is parasympathetic, the other one is sympathetic activation. Sympathetic activation is fight or flight response. So anytime I think of that event, it raises my heartbeat, it raises my breath rate, I go for the sympathetic activation. As soon as I go for the sympathetic activation, what happens? It suppresses my frontal cortex. It suppresses my frontal cortex. Now, what is the frontal cortex? Frontal cortex is the only area of your body, if that is activated, you can achieve impartial observation of anything. Impartial observation means your ability to stay present in present moment. Only when you stay in the present moment, you are completely impartial. Think of it. Because impartiality is where neither is in the past nor is in the future, it's only in the present moment. Just think of present moment and bring yourself in the present moment and see your awareness and the quality of awareness. It's completely impartial. But when the frontal cortex is down due to sympathetic activation, what happens? Either we jump into the past or into the future. And it's very hard for us to have a different meaning of that event. So is there a possibility for us to hold it as an object of concentration and relax ourselves? And find the rhythm? So you repair certain ideas, you get rejuvenated with a different idea now, and ultimately reprogramming about what? Of the same event. Of the same event. So yoga is 5 steps. Relaxation, rhythm, repair, rejuvenation, reprogramming. Until unless the reprogramming is not being done and it stays there as a seed in the past, it's going to influence the present moment and it's going to influence the future. So appreciation of past leads to satisfaction in the present moment. Appreciation of past leads to satisfaction in the present moment. And satisfaction in the present moment, that means you're not worried about future anymore. So where it starts? It all starts from the past. So the idea is, whatever the experiences you went on having as a human organism, please do not accept them the way they appear. Please do not accept them, but at the same time, please do not reject them. So whatever the experiences you went on having as a human organism, that's your kitty, that's your bag, and that is sufficient enough for you to be enlightened. Doesn't matter if you're only 14-year-old, 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 8-year-old. Whatever the experiences are there in your kitty, they are sufficient enough for you to be enlightened. And what is enlightenment? Your ability to keep impartial awareness on voluntarily. And that's called 100% free will.